Welcome everybody, thank you for coming, all of you. We're just here today to have a chat. Lucy and I are both lucky enough to have our debut novels come out this year. Yours was in July and mine was in August. And it's been a really interesting experience being a debut author, not just the experience of writing it, but also the experience of getting published and then post-publication and what that looks like. For me, it's only been a couple of months, and for you, it's been a few months now, and what we've kind of learned and experienced, and we thought it'd be fun to sort of have a little chat about that and talk about what our journey has been like through this debut author minefield.
And so we probably should kick off by telling you a little bit about our novels.
Yes.
Because some of you may not have actually heard of us before. So
you go first.
I'll kick off. So this is my book, Mystic Ridge, and it's a kind of alternative counterculture romance set in an alternative or a fictional version of Mullumbimby, and also a fictional version of the Woodford Music Festival, which is... Oh, okay, sure. So it's, as I said, it's a counterculture romance set in a fictional version of Mullumbimby on the New South Wales North Coast, and it's also set, partly set in a fictional version of the Woodford Music Festival, which is in southeastern Queensland. And it's about a tarot reader and sole parent called Claire, who has to fight to save her rainforest land that she's been protecting for many years from a would-be developer. And it's also about Leo, who is the editor of the local paper, which is inspired by the Byron Bay Echo, and he's who has a tragic secret in his past. But Leo also believes that journalistic objectivity means you need to explore both sides of a story, and that becomes very difficult when Claire can only see one. And I've also got a cast of teenage characters that I'm very fond of, and people, members of the local alternative community. So it was a lot of fun to write it, and I hope those of you who read it enjoy reading it. Over to you, Amy. Well, my grandchildren actually live up there with my daughter at the moment, so I spend a lot of time going north, and in fact have been going up there for holidays, and even briefly for a student placement many years ago. So yeah, I'm very familiar with the area. Yeah.
And mine, Sit Stay Love, is actually based on the Northern Beaches, which is where I've lived all my life, and it's set around a pet shelter, a rescue shelter in Oxford Falls. And it's a very soft love triangle between the young woman who runs the pet shelter, her best friend Toby McManus, who's the local... She's Tim Toby, who's the local vet, and her best friend, and he looks after all the animals that she saves. And the up-and-coming super hot Aussie actor who stumbles into their lives one night and has just landed a big Hollywood role, but there's one hitch: his co-star is a dog, and Ethan James is very scared of dogs. So he asks Sarah, who runs the pet shelter, if she can help him get over his dog phobia, and obviously sparks suddenly fly, and then Toby kind of isn't really acting quite like the best friend she always thought it was, more like a jealous boyfriend. So, but it's got a lot of puppies and kittens. There's a dog called Buffy, which is actually my dog, and she's very sweet, Staffy, and yes, she is, and it's a gentle love triangle, because I've found out since writing it that some people are a bit averse to love triangles. I was like, really? But it's quite a soft one. The men are both very good men, and either one would be a good choice. So it's a tough decision for her, and one of my favourite things that has happened in some of the reviews is that people haven't been able to decide themselves who they want her to go with. So, and I'm like, yay! So that's kind of the story. Lots of animals and cheese platters. There's lots of cheese platters in it.
They do, and they eat a lot of pizza.
They eat a lot of pizza.
Yeah.
And lots of cheese platters.
So,
yeah, so that's it.
yeah, so it's fantastic. That's such a fantastic premise.
Thank
Such
you.
a delightful book. I just wanted to say that to everybody. So, how was it that you came to be published, Amy? I've just been hearing this story off camera, so I'd like to hear it again.
How it came to be published?
Yeah, how did you come to be published?
With this book, I pitched it at the Romance Writers of Australia conference. So both Lucy and I are members of Romance Writers of Australia, which is a really fantastic organisation that really supports and educates and up-and-coming writers, as well as writers who have many books out there. And I joined them when I decided that I was going to do this full-time, which I left my job to do. I actually quit my job and sold my unit and moved back in with my mom so that I could do this full-time and really give it a go. Thank goodness that it worked. I joined Romance Writers of Australia, and I pitched to them last year at the conference in Fremantle and got a request about a week later. A couple of months after that, got a phone call sort of saying, got just a line of email saying, I love this, I'm sharing it with my team. And then...
what was the phone call about?
That was the phone call I got was when they made the offer.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
A week after Romance
No,
Writers?
I got a email.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they emailed me and asked me for more material. Then they emailed me to say, they being the publisher, Cassandra DeBello, who I pitched to, saying, I love this, I'm sharing it with my team. What else have you got? And I was like, oh my gosh. And so then I went into like panic stations and pulled all my ideas together. And then I got the email saying, are you around? I'd like to chat. And yeah, then I got the offer. So that's how it happened. It was a live pitch, just a great opportunity. I didn't have to kind of pop it into the slush pile or anything like that, which you do. Often you just submit to publishers who are open to open submissions, and it just goes in what they call the slush pile, and people do get picked up from that, and there's been some great successes from that. But it's it's a hard one. So it's good to be actually in a situation, and there are a couple of pitching opportunities in Australia that we're very, very lucky. In Australia we have that, and we also can talk to publishers without agents here quite a bit as well. And how about you? You had a similar experience.
Yeah, I
really.
did. But I was just going to say, what blows me away about that story is the fact that you left your job not knowing whether or not you're going to be published, and I just think that's such an act of courage, and good on you, Amy.
Oh, thanks. It's just,
Well done.
Gotta jump.
Yeah, well you did, and you landed on your feet, which is fantastic. So my story is not dissimilar in that I also pitched at a Romance Writers of Australia conference. So if you're writing romance, join the Romance Writers of Australia. We're both very good advocates for this organisation. So amongst other people that I pitched to Rachel Donovan from HQ, Harlequin, HarperCollins, and at some point along the way I also got myself an agent, Alexandra Nalus, and she re-pitched to Rachel, and Rachel took my book to what they call an acquisitions meeting, which is where marketing people decide whether or not the book will sell. And it went through, so I was over the moon about that. So it's I'm not sure whether the pitching got it through or my agent got it through, but it got through, and I was, of course, over the moon. But I always had a bit of a backup plan with work, so I didn't quite put all my eggs in one basket like Amy did.
I threw all the eggs into the basket, just tossed them all in there, and bling, hope for the best.
Yeah. I think this is such a great success story. But I now have all my eggs in one basket. So.
That's right. We're both very lucky in that we do this full time.
Yeah.
And a lot of writers aren't able to do that, and I honestly don't know how they do all the things. I know of writers who have full-time jobs raising families and are still managing to turn out books, and I don't know how they do that. So I'm in awe of them.
Yeah, I think people just basically miss sleep, and
I think so.
That's not something that I'm able to do at this stage of my life.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, the best thing about being a debut author, What do you think?
I think it was just super exciting, you know, getting a book out. And actually, when you get the box, they send you a box, and when you get the box, it's really very, you know, amazing to open it up and just have this huge box of books. That's thrilling, and seeing it on the shelf is thrilling, and having people come up to you is amazing. And I don't know if anybody ever gets used to that, but I had a young woman come up and ask if she could hug me because she loved the book so much. And I was like, oh, yes. Are you Team Toby or Team Ethan? She was Team Ethan. I always ask. But yeah, so I think probably seeing it, and also the other thing that's been really amazing is meeting people like Lucy and other authors, which there's a really fantastic author community on the Northern Beaches, which I had no idea about. And they're really supportive, and that has been super exciting as well. And that's been a really big kick out of being a debut author is having them basically tuck you under their wing. And I had a launch, and I would never have done it if I didn't go to Lucy's launch and meet a whole lot of other authors who all went, you're having a launch, and basically made me have a launch. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, there are definitely more experienced authors. Penelope Janou is someone, she's a rural romance writer for Harlequin HQ as well. And
I think we've got both got quotes
from
from
her,
her,
quotes from her on the
on our books.
on the cover.
Mine's on the back.
Yeah, so she's taken both of us under her wing.
Yeah.
Can I just say, the other day I bought a little bottle of wine, and it was called Ruby Rose, and the funds went to some refuge for dogs, and it had sit, stay, and something else afterwards. And when I saw sit, stay, and I saw the dog, so there's a wine.
You have to look out for that one.
I'll be looking that one up. Promotional opportunities.
That chop up the... You know.
Dan Murphy's.
Yeah, it could be there, love, but it's only small.
I'll check it out.
And it's very nice. It's like a rosé, quite beautiful.
We might both have to have a tipple of that one. Yeah, so it's been similar for me. Meeting, you know, it's been lovely meeting Amy and other authors, and I think just having this, you know, you write words out of they come out of nowhere. You create something, and then it has an existence that's separate from you. So it was just lovely to get it published, and now readers read it, and they write not always lovely things about it, but often write mostly really lovely things about it, and they even see things in it that surprise me. So, you know, it's just really special. It's a form of communication, I suppose, that I'm really unfamiliar with. You write something, and people see more than I've even seen in the work, and that's really special.
Yeah. And I think what you said, it sort of goes off and has a little life of its own, is really exciting as well, because, you know, it's like any kind of art, I guess. We all see something different in it, and everybody's experiences something different when they look or watch or read any kind of form of art. And these guys have gone off and, you know, gone out into the world on their own, and people have embraced them mostly. And it's kind of really interesting to see them have their own little life out there, doing their own thing, that we've kind of put together. We built them.
Yeah,
I love the way you're both when you talk about books,
Patting my book all the time.
Well, I suppose it's interesting when I've been doing social media posts. I've started referring to the book as, I've given her a gender, so she's now a she, and so I take her, you know, in some of my posts I've taken her for a walk and shown her things, and other people post photos of her all over the world, and, you know, it feels like she does very much have an existence that's separate from mine, like a child or a dog, as you said. What's that? Yeah.
That's actually a really super fun thing. I had an Aussie who was travelling in London recently. I didn't know her, and she bought the book and she took it away with her, and she sent me a photo of it on a London bus with her. And I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, they travel without us. They travel much further than we get to.
Yes, much further.
Yeah, so the hardest thing about or the worst thing about being a debut author, I don't know, that's a funny question, isn't
I
it?
think you came up with it.
Yeah, I did.
I think it's just anxiety, really.
Yeah.
For me, it's quite it's been a very nervous time. I had a lot going on at the same time I was launching, which was not ideal and couldn't be helped. And it was just, timing was a bit wacky. And so I think that put a little bit extra pressure on me. But I think probably just nerves. You want it to do so well. And not just for me, but also for the book, because and also the characters. I love them, and I want everybody to love them. I want everybody to embrace them, and I'm really sad when people go, "Oh, I didn't like the characters." I'm like, why? I'm pretty good with feedback, but I feel bad for the characters, and I also wanted to work for my publisher. I'm with Simon & Schuster, which I don't think I mentioned, but they've really kind of put their faith behind me, and they've been amazing and so lovely, and I want it to work for them, and so there's a lot of, I think, of anxiety balled up. And
what is it with the editors?
With my editor with Simon Schuster, she's amazing. That is the most fantastic experience for me, and we just had a really great collaboration. But I think it's just nerves of, you don't really know what to expect, and also you don't really know what you're doing.
We've come from very different careers, haven't we? You're in television, which is so different to this, and I was a social worker, which is, basically you go to work every day, do your work, and get paid, and there's no. This is, where we produced art, but it's going out into a marketplace, and that's just very different.
Yeah, it is. It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
You have
to
learn
kind of
how
teach yourself a lot of new skills.
Put on a launch and be able to communicate that to people, and be able to speak and come up with lists of questions and things like that. So it's just a whole bunch of new skills. So I think it's just a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Well, I actually helped organise David, my husband's at the back, birthday party just before my book came out. So that was such event organising, was such good preparation.
Oh, that would be.
For organising the events that followed. But public speaking, doing stuff online, using Canva, which is it helps you produce colourful artistic posters.
Just a whole.
It's a whole pressure by your publisher to how what your limit is in writing. You know what I mean? Sometimes are they pushing you? You've got to have this finished by a certain time, or do you just say I'm writing whatever it is you say, and then he takes it when it's finished?
I think that depends on what your situation is with your publisher at the time.
The other day they had all about the back goes on. That was.
Oh yeah, it's yeah. I mean, you have deadlines, and then when you get an edit, you have a deadline, and then you have another deadline. So because they have a deadline, they have publishing deadlines, they have printing deadlines, all those kind of their deadlines all need to be met. So we have to meet ours to accommodate theirs. It's I mean, it really is like, I think any kind of workspace. It's a very much a team kind of thing. There's a lot of people come together to make this. Yeah, I wrote it, but
so they're supporting us, but we're also supporting them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what have readers seen in your book that's surprised you, Amy?
No, I'm always because I've got two guys in the book. I'm always really interested to see what team they're on, if they're Team Toby or Team Ethan. I'm going to say that most people, like Lucy here, is Team Toby.
And feel quite strong. I just want to say I feel quite strongly about being Team. So I'm sure other people have strong opinions as well.
Yes, they do. They do. I am both, obviously, but I'm a little Team Ethan at the moment. So that's been really interesting, hearing why they've connected to the different characters. I mean, it's kind of obvious, some of them, but it's also been interesting when, probably 80% of the people are Team Toby, the ones that are Team Ethan, why, so it's been good to kind of find out why they connect to him But I think I think I said before, the most surprising thing for me is that they find that they can't choose as well. So they feel like they're very much in the same situation as Sarah, the character, and having two very good choices, both of whom can, you know, really enrich her life in very different ways, and it's a tough choice.
And it's a credit to you that people, you know, are either struggling or come down so strongly on one side or the other. It means that, you know, it says to me, and this has been my experience, that the world that you've created feels very immersive and very real. So, yeah.
Thank you. What about you?
What about me? Well, I've got some teenage characters, as I mentioned earlier, and people have really fallen for the teenage characters in a way that surprised me because they're sort of secondary characters. So I've had a lot of really nice feedback about them. And I guess there's a lot of sort of mysticism, a bit of magical realism in my book. There's even a ghost. And people have really gone for that. They love it. They love... I think because life is pretty... You know, life is hard and there's a lot of awful things going on in the world, and people are... You know, people are having a real love affair with the tarot at the moment, for example, because the tarot obviously features quite a bit in my book. So... The tarot, yeah, because
Tarot
my main
cards.
character is a tarot reader. So just the way that people have gone for that
Which
has
is really
surprised me.
appealing for me because I happen to collect tarot cards. I have about 20 kit sets.
Yeah, and I have two. So I only have two. So the next question might be of interest to people who are actually writing, which is, how do you sit down and write a book? Amy, how do you sit down and write a book?
I just
you
sit
finish
down and
work,
write a book.
you leave your job.
I actually, I treat it like a job, and I'm really particular about it. And so I get up in the morning, I do whatever I have to do, if I've walked the dogs or whatever, and then I sit down and I write. And I treat it like a job. I have a lunch break usually at my desk, shoveling food in while I'm writing, but which is how I used to do it at my old job. So, you know, like, I'm very used to eating at my desk. And I, you know, knock off sort of around 4 or 5, depending upon where I'm at. I might go a bit longer if I'm really into something, but I try to sort of frame it around a fairly normal working sort of day. And admittedly, I do it 6 to 7 days a week, which is probably not normal, but I like it. And so I'll say to myself, I'm going to have a day off, and then I don't. Because I'm like, I have an idea, and then I'm writing again. And so I think when it's coming from a place of passion and love, that's it sort of transcends being work. I'm lucky that it hasn't really felt like work yet. I mean, there's been times where I've been running to a deadline and it's been like, oh my gosh, a lot of pressure coming with that. But it's still enjoyable because I'm still sort of working on something that I'm loving, and I'm loving the character. So I always did right from the get-go. When I left my full-time job, I took a whole lot of courses. I spent really the first year doing a lot of craft, you know, trying to get into a lot of memberships of different writing groups and going to, you know, different courses in person. Well, briefly, because then we had a pandemic. And I didn't go out again for about 2 years.
Did you do like one big course or mostly
No,
just short
I did
courses?
little short courses. So I
Yeah.
think the longest course I did was probably about four or 5 months, which was short story. But no, I did a lot of short courses, day courses, all different ones. I didn't do any of those really big, write your novel in a year course or anything like that. That felt a little overwhelming to me. And also I wanted to write. And I'm a very big fan of Stephen King full stop, but he wrote a book called On Writing, which I believe is the best book ever written on writing. Yeah. It is absolutely gold. I mean, it's a memoir, because he wrote it post his accident when he got knocked over by a minivan and was like broken completely. And so there's an element of memoir in it, and but he frames it around his journey in writing. And then he really cracks into craft. but it's in such an entertaining way that I think anybody can write it. And one of the things in there he says is you've got to learn, but at one point you've got to stop and write. And that's kind of how I felt like if I was doing a course that would take 2 years, when am I going to really do the work? So I did sort of a lot of short courses until I got to a point where, I mean, I'm still doing short courses now and then, but when I got to a point where I was like, right, now I'm just going to do the work. And I treat it like a job. And I get in there and write. And it just comes down from the heavens somehow. I don't know where
because
from.
you're sitting at your desk, that's why it comes down from the heavens. That's interesting, because I had a really different experience. I wrote most of my book while I was working. You know that saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy woman or person. So I wrote much of my book on the 20-minute ferry commute across the harbour, because I worked at RPA and I live on the live in Manly. So, and I rode my bike at either end. So I just had that 20 minutes, and most of my writing was in the morning, and then I do a few hours on the weekends.
Wow.
And I've actually, since I've stopped work, I've found it a lot harder to focus, interestingly enough.
That's interesting.
So,
this is what intrigues me. When you stop writing, and then you pick it up again at the weekend or whatever, have you ever done a sort of a script of what you want to say or do, a briefing, and then you sit down and fill in?
I do.
Like sort of, it's like sometimes an artist and does a sketch and then he looks at the sketch and thinks, no, that's not quite right, and he re-evaluates it.
Well, they talk about plotting and
pantsing
versus pantsing, and plotting is when plotters. They're two sort of extreme positions. Plotters plan everything, and pantsers just write whatever comes into their head.
By the seat of their pants.
By the seat of their pants, and most people fall somewhere in the middle. And
I call myself a plantser.
Yeah, I probably lean towards the pantsing end, but
I lean towards pantsing. I start as a I pants like crazy at the beginning, and then at some point I hop out and at least try and figure out where on earth I'm going.
Yeah, because you can actually just, start writing rubbish and get really lost. So I do this thing sometimes that I learned from a writer called Catherine Hayman, which is spin the scene. I actually write, spin the scene, and then I write a few lines about where I'm going. And in fact, I have managed to write a second book, and I'm on to my third. And so I am writing. I am doing some writing. Just it's a little bit more erratic. It's sort of a bit more patchy than what Amy's doing. Yeah. I'm easily distracted. Well, I have many distractions. I have family stuff that distracts me. What was I saying? Planting. Yes. So I did with my second book get quite lost at one point, and was just trying to. I had a goal of 1,000 words each time I sat down to write, and it wasn't great writing. So I went to some craft books, as you did, which were a book called Saving the Cat, and a specific one based on Saving the Cat called Romancing the Beat,
which
by
is
Gwen Hayes.
I never write a book without romancing the beat.
And it's about structure, and it tells you, what beats are like the moments of critical action and change in a book. So it sort of tells you what should be happening and when, and then I replotted in a way and wrote to that structure, and that really helped me finish the book, because it's easy to lose your way when you're a pantser. So I needed to become a bit more of a plantser than a pantser at that point. Yeah, it's really hard work because there are so many elements that have to come together. You want to. It took me a while to learn that characters kind of develop in relationship to each other.
Yeah.
So, I can create a character who is this, but until they're interacting with somebody else, that doesn't become really clear on the page. That they have a particular quirk or eccentricity. I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. They have chocolate 3 times a day. I mean, that's not a great example, but you need to sort of put your characters in situations, find out how they respond. So you need to kind of step back and watch them but then you can't let them be too free. You have to kind of bring them back so that they fit into a story structure. It's quite an art to it, and it's easy to as I said, to lose your way, and then I'm constantly having to bring myself back to focus on story.
But I think it's what is also fun is that sometimes your characters do wander off, and they can take you somewhere you were not expecting, you hadn't planned, you didn't realise it was even in your head, and they go off and they do this thing and you're like, oh, that was amazing, where'd that come from? And it can actually lead, it might reveal something new about them that I know this sounds ridiculous, but that you didn't know about them. I know that sounds ridiculous because it's coming out of your brain, but it might, it's just subconscious at work, or it might, or they might take the story in a direction that you weren't originally planning, and a whole scene or a whole, chapter might unfold because they took a step to the right when you thought they were going to go left.
And I always
of the writer's character suddenly turning against the writer and saying, blaming you, we're going to do it our way.
I think sometimes they do that.
And it's very similar to, if anyone's done drama, it's very similar to dramatic improvisation. You say it's important to, as I said, rein them in sometimes, but also to say yes to the unexpected, to be open to the magic of writing, the magic of creativity. It's a really wonderful thing.
And the imagination, which
is
pretty wild sometimes.
Yeah. And we all have an inner life. We all. I think there are depths to all of us that we often fail to mine, and writing gives you an opportunity to take yourself on a wonderful journey that you hadn't. Well, that's my experience anyway. That I hadn't expected to go on. It's more fun than travelling, really. I don't know, maybe.
I do like
travelling and writing together.
Yeah,
they're pretty good
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
That would be great. Dream.
Oh, we're not. Right. We've got so much to say.
We're
not getting through these questions.
I know, we're too chatty. Okay, so we kind of have a couple of here that we can probably put together. We, as new writers, what have we really learned about the business of writing, and maybe about the craft of writing, and how those two kind of go together?
Yeah.
Because it is an art, but it's also, as you said, it's a commerce. So you got to, it's all good and well to write one, but you really want to sell it too. So what have you learned of those two things and how they?
Well, it just reminds me of the times in my life that I've needed other people, I guess. Yeah. Because it's really important to give and to receive as a writer, to be generous and to accept the generosity of others. And I've been very moved by people I haven't even known, fellow romance writers who've written me a lovely review on Goodreads, or have gone out of their way to buy a book, or have come up to me and said how much they've enjoyed it. That's the sort of thing that has been really important about. That doesn't sound like business, but I guess
it is really.
But it kind of is, yeah. But there's a lot of sort of love behind it. Really.
Yeah, there is, and I do think that it's as much as it is a very big business. Publishing, it's quite gentle. I've found it to be very, at least in my experience, it's been super encouraging. Everybody's. They love your characters, and they want so much success for you, and I have found that has been a really positive experience for me, working in that business that maybe I hadn't quite experienced before in previous businesses that I worked in, where there was that real true desire for you to succeed.
We all want to succeed, and we all want each other to succeed. I don't know if it's quite so lovely in literary fiction, but certainly in commercial fiction. And maybe romance, there's a lot of support, and particularly in romance.
I think, because it's all so nice, and everything's got a happily ever after because it's romance. It has to.
And I think also because we're a bit marginalised as romance writers. There's still a kind of misogyny around romance writing, and unlike crime writing or other kinds of genre writing, it's regarded as something inferior.
It is.
And so we have to fight that.
Though it is actually holding up book sales at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is what's
selling
keeping,
more than anything.
Yeah, it is what's keeping the book sales up in this country now is romance.
Absolutely. So we keep the literary writers in business, not the other way around.
And if any of them see this, they'll go,
so they should be grateful.
but yeah.
Yeah, and so that's been a really lovely thing to learn, and just that you can't just sit in a garret and write your books as someone like Charles Dickens probably did. You know, we have to go out and promote them.
Yeah,
and self-promotion, you know, it doesn't come easily to any of us, or not many of us anyway. Some people are really good at it, but for most of us it's something that we have to learn. And the craft, I guess it's just, bringing those elements together. Dialogue, structure, character. Dialogue's really fun to write.
Love writing dialogue.
Love writing dialogue. You've got a background in television, so that would really equip you very well. Just place. Just bringing all the elements together to actually write a book has been a fantastic experience, and letting the magic happen so that the twists and turns in the book really comes as a surprise to people. Yeah. It's been something I've learned.
And I think just knowing that the more you write, the better you get. Just honestly, just write.
True, yeah.
Just keep on doing it, because you really, it is quite shocking to go back and maybe read something that, an early draft or an early book, and you're like, oh, I know I've had some short stories published, and I was so proud of that first short story that got published, and I recently went back and read it and went, okay, I would love to just rewrite that one, because it's not bad or awful or anything, but I could do it so much better now, because I have written so much more, and the more you write, the more skilled you become at it.
That's really true.
And I think that's people need to just write. To be a writer, you need to write.
All right, so I've got a few questions for you, Amy,
okay.
And you have a few questions for me.
I do.
So I'll ask you, I just want to maybe pick up the best of these. What made you decide to set your book in an animal shelter on the Northern Beaches?
Well, the Northern Beach, I did want to write a book set in Australia. I think that's really important. I think there's a lot of very loud American romance voices. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love them and I read them all. But it's the romance market is very saturated with American romance. So it's lovely to have Australian romance and Australian stories in Australian voices. And so I was quite keen to do that. I've grown up on the Northern Beaches, so this is obviously an area that I know, which makes it kind of a bit easy, bit of a cheat. And but also the Northern Beaches has so much. Like, I could set something in Oxford Falls on a property where Sarah has room for kennels, but she also has a sheep and a horse that she's taking care of, because in Oxford Falls that's actually has that up there. But also you're still 10 minutes from the beach, so the movie star can live overlooking one of our beautiful beaches, and they can go to a world-class restaurant in Manly, and so there's a lot of diversity in the environment, which I thought really was great to tap into. And animal shelter, it just happened. Look, it just happened. The whole book just happened. The opening scene in this book is just doinked into my head, and I put it down on paper or on my computer, and then it kind of just flowed from there eventually. Like, I walked away from it because I was writing something else, and then I just kept coming back, and then I'm going to have to write this thing now. But I have a rescue dog, and my dog before was a rescue dog, also in this book, named Harry, and I'm very passionate about pet shelters, rescue animals, and so I thought that was a really great place to set it. And it was nice. It was important for me that the happily ever afters wasn't just for the humans; it was also for the animals in the stories as well.
You got your system.
Pardon?
You got it out of your system.
No.
So, and Ethan he's an actor and a celebrity.
Yes.
So I just want to know why you decided to have a character like
he
that.
just wandered in.
Yeah.
He just kind of wandered in, but I really enjoyed writing him. I love Ethan, and he's a cinnamon roll. Here's Ethan here. And he's a cinnamon roll of a man. He really is lovely.
No, that's a lovely way to describe him, a cinnamon roll of a man.
And yeah, but it wasn't like I didn't plan to have a movie star or anything in there, but he just rocked in when I was writing, and there he was. And
Fully formed.
Fully formed.
So, which sort of leads me to the question, because you did tell me the other day that you have worked with some celebrities. So how has your work as a television producer fed into your writing?
Well, that's really interesting because I didn't think that my work as a television producer, and I produced the television promos, so the things that went tomorrow night on The Voice or next week on RPA or whatever. I produced those 30-second stories telling you what a next episode of a show is going to be, 60-second story telling you what a movie is that's going to be on, Channel 9 I worked for a long time, or whatever. I worked at Foxtel as well. So I never put the two together, but they actually have. I think having that background in television has been gold for me. I have done a lot of graphic work. I have worked in social media. I've created social media campaigns. So all that kind of stuff.
It's really fed in.
The work of television, the script writing, even though it's only 4 lines, 3-4 lines or whatever, and it's probably something really naff like the biggest episode this year or something. But all those kind of things seem to have been absolute bonus. I think especially post-launch and doing social media for the book. Using Canva and building my own graphics and creating social campaigns and that kind of thing. I kind of feel like I had a little bit of a leg up on that because I did that professionally.
No, and it shows.
It's been a bit of a who knew? Who knew that would be such a good thing? Shall we move on to you?
Well, just one question, which is, has Buffy, because Buffy's your baby, has your dog ever led you into romance? And if so, how did it turn out?
No, she hasn't, and I need to have a serious conversation with her about that because she's obviously falling down on her job.
I'll have a word to her too if I get a chance.
She has romance with everybody in the park. She just goes and loves everybody, but never brings anybody back.
Well, you need to train her better.
Now, so what inspired Mystic Ridge for you? And, what's your connection? I think we talked a little bit about your connection to the area.
Yeah.
But where did this story come from?
Well, I was writing, before I wrote this, I was kind of writing tragedy because I thought that was what good writing was. It had to be miserable. Which was a silly idea, really. And then I wrote, romance writers.
Yeah.
So romance writers in, I think it was 2018, you had to write a story. They had this prompt, they were called Little Gems, and that year it was a tiger's eye. And I thought tiger's eye, tarot reader. I'd just been to a country market, tent, country market.
There you go.
And it all started from there. And I wrote a short story which was terribly written. I reread it again the other day. It was shocking. So it didn't place. It was never published, but I liked the ideas, and so I just kept going. That was what inspired it. And then, this sort of, I've got a bit of an alternative history, I suppose. I was a bit of an environmental activist in the long distant past, and that came into it as well. So it's really just inspired. It's funny what emerges, like my history emerged, my ideas about the natural world, and my worry about land clearing as an issue that contributes to climate change, but is also biodiversity loss. And but the characters were fun. Writing about a tarot reader so different to me, so different to working as a social worker. It was just really fun. So yeah, that was the inspiration.
And so, no, this was one I threw at Lucy the other day, and she was like, "Oh, that's a big question." I was like, "Why is Claire a tarot reader in this, and are you a believer?"
Right. Yeah, it's a great question. So Claire was a tarot reader because, I've already really answered that. I think the tarot cards are amazing because each of them tells a story, and each of them can tell many stories, and in combination, they, like characters in a book, they speak to each other, and the story of two or more cards becomes a grand narrative. And I have done a few very amateurish readings, one in Big W when I was signing for a customer. And I think it's just about, I was a counsellor in my past life, so it's just about listening and talking and feeding back what I'm hearing. And the main risk with tarot is I think to give people false hope, if they're in difficult situations. So I guess that's something that tarot readers really need to watch, or to be too authoritative. But it is also possible just to listen to someone and to tell them what you've heard and what you've observed, and that can be quite powerful because it's a story. And our lives, we're always trying to make sense of our lives and tell stories about ourselves and each other. So yeah, it can be really powerful. I don't know if it's magic, or maybe it is, maybe that's a kind of magic.
And what about your characters then? Because you talked to me about having an actor. You have an actor in your book and a rock star.
And a rock star. That's right. And we, what I said to Amy was it was all about wish fulfillment. So I was a social worker who, it's somewhere in the back of my mind. I wanted to be a singer in a band. I wanted to be a rock star. I want to be an actor. I want to be Kate Blanchett, and I'm not.
Everybody wants to be Kate Blanchett.
So if I can't be, then my characters, my
exactly.
characters can live out that fantasy.
You can experience
which is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about, do you think your career has helped you in any way, your past career, in like your creation of characters and also the journeys that they take? Maybe as you said, Leo's got a past trauma.
Yeah.
Is that the word you used? Yes.
Trauma.
Is that not
tragic past?
Tragic past. That
Tragic
was it. I knew
past.
the trauma wasn't right. I was like, what was the wording? So do you think your career as a counsellor has kind of helped you carve out those characters' worlds a little more
socially? Yeah, I don't know, because I think a lot of writers do all this really well, but certainly being a social worker means that you're trained to look at a person not as a dysfunctional individual, but as somebody who comes from a family, a culture, a society, religion perhaps, or spirituality, that everyone has a history. We're just so trained to look at people in context, and to have compassion, to have empathy for people, and so hopefully perhaps that's enabled me to add some depth to my characters. That would be really nice to think so, but it's not to say that it's a skill that only a social worker can have, but it's probably contributed in some way. Yeah. So that's probably a good place to.
That's a good place to
end.
So that's it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming, and I hope it was vaguely interesting.
It's been really fun for us.
It's been really fun.